Yeah.
It is. What was fascinating for me is I've got a few more gray hairs than you have. I've been around the block a couple of times with regards to business. And as we got into business, we really figured out that we face a lot of the same challenges all the time. And one of the things we wanted to kind of explore here, chit-chatting, is just how rapidly business changes, consumer behavior changes, and we've been in a period over the last 5-10 years where it's been changing at an unprecedented rate, and we wanted to kind of share with you some of the experiences we've both had, one from a recent startup and one that's been around a little bit longer but still faces a lot of the same challenges.
Yeah, well, for Slumberkins, my best friend and I started Slumberkins just about 4 years ago. We're an educator and a therapist turned entrepreneurs, and we kind of Slumberkins is a brand promoting emotional wellness for children through a board book and a plush creature combo that helps deliver therapeutic tools to parents to teach these social emotional skills to their children. And with the changing landscape, I think we really benefited from that. We got on to Instagram and started selling through social media. And it was back when it wasn't really pay to play and you could really build an organic following. And so we got a lot of people interested in the brand really organically and have kind of ridden the wave as things have changed. And you've been able to start selling on Instagram through pins, and stories wasn't happening back when we were on Instagram and started the business. So we were able to build Slumberkins as a direct-to-consumer brand, selling mostly through social media with a really engaged audience and consumer base that was really engaged in our story.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that hit us straight away. Do we have any commuters out there on bicycle? Do we have anybody that has a Showers Pass jacket out there? Thank you. Help and pay the mortgage. Really appreciate it. One of the things that we shared straight away is Showers Pass has been around a little bit longer. And if we look back just 5-10 years ago, 90% of our business came from what we described as independent bike stores, little mom and pop independent bike stores. And then fast forward to today, and independent bike stores contribute probably only about 10% of our revenue because the landscape has changed so dramatically. And I think that's one of the things that I wanted to try and share with everybody when I'm up here is that it doesn't matter when your business starts, the evolution of a marketplace and marketplaces just continue to change all the time. There is not an end state goal. If you think you can see an end state, you're probably going to be closing down far beyond that because you better be evolving and changing on a daily basis. We were very fortunate. We just kind of we didn't have a crystal ball, but we saw that the landscape was changing, and we started to evolve our business fairly dramatically early on.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal for me to sit here with you, such a seasoned CEO. You were a CEO of a public company, and for me, really surreal, as Built Oregon was one of the first conferences that my co-founder and I came to just 3 years ago. It was the first business conference we ever came to as an educator and a therapist. We didn't, we're just trying to get into the community, and to sit here now and to be able to even sit on stage and talk about what we've done in 3 years. And, it's a testament to being really tuned in to what's going on in your market and the changing landscapes.
It is, being tuned in is kind of an interesting topic as well. It was Kelly and I, when we had a chat, I think she went back and went on to, which one is it? Where you sent the message.
Wait, what? Which one?
It wasn't Twitter, it was the other one, LinkedIn.
Oh, on LinkedIn, yes, that's
LinkedIn.
Right. You don't have LinkedIn. I was trying to tag him, like, I'm having a fireside chat with Kyle. He's not on LinkedIn. What is this?
So it's kind of, I actually have an aversion to LinkedIn because I used to be a CEO of a public company, and credit to LinkedIn, it was a very clever way of getting started. If you're a CEO of a public company, your information is public domain. So I didn't join LinkedIn. LinkedIn joined me. And so the first thing I knew about LinkedIn, I was as CEO of a public company, I started getting all these hundreds and hundreds of emails saying, I want to be your friend. And one thing my mum always said to me is, well, don't forget, it's not you, it's the title. It's like, and so I'm like, I don't want to be part of any of this. But right now, I don't have a LinkedIn account, I don't have a Twitter account, but the company does, I'm pleased to say, because it's critical for success.
Yeah, we tagged Showers Pass on the...
We did tag
yeah.
Showers Pass, and it was very much appreciated.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed straight away with what the topics we were getting into was just the commonality of business challenges and how we face the same even though the businesses are at very different stages, we still face the same challenges on a daily basis with regards to how we grow the business, how we drive revenue, how we fulfill that revenue, and how we fulfill the product even.
Yeah, so for me, it's always interesting hearing, what you're doing. I think it's so different, especially in this day and age. A lot of people are asking us about direct-to-consumer and how do you build this on social media, because I think in the pipeline that we're in, because we've done fundraising and kind of the storylines that is hot right now in consumer products is, direct-to-consumer, this kind of stuff. It's interesting for me to hear about your side of, being in retail and building a sustainable business that is doing really well also, and just sort of those different paths from, venture-backed or normal fundraising and kind of the trend of what's going on right now versus building a sustainable brand like you have.
And that's the one thing we realized straight away early on as we were discussing as entrepreneurs, as folks are trying to start businesses, it's where do you go and where is your channel and where are you selling to? And often there's not necessarily a right answer. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make earlier, is it constantly evolves as to where you're going, who potentially your customer is, evolves as well as markets change. And that's something, as a mature business, we had to be very, very careful as we navigate. We're fortunate we have a strategy that is both direct to consumer and through retail. But the complexities that hands with regards to pricing and everything else, international, managing your inventory, and that's something we discussed in quite some depth, is making sure you've got the right stuff at the right time for the right customer.
Yeah, that's logistics and planning and manufacturing is definitely not something we studied, and I was lucky to build out our team really from the ground up, similar to how we built started the brand. We got people who were into our mission and wanted to learn fast right alongside of us. So shout out to our first employee, Alyssa, out there, who is now our director of operations and has been with us since like month 2 or 3 of the business. But she's really helped so much when we started Slumberkins, we taught ourselves to sew and went down to Joanne Fabric and started sewing these plush characters, and we scaled up from that to now being made overseas, and planning logistics and planning and being 6 months out from an order, from when you place it to where it lands, and how much you should order based on how fast you're growing, which for us has been over 100% each year.
And how much the duties are going to be on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah. It's very overwhelming, but for us, we just keep putting ourselves back into the learner's seat of, we never really go into many conversations or saying, oh, we for sure have the right idea, we know exactly what we're doing, because most of the time we don't, and we're just constantly figuring it out, and that's given us, I think, there's probably some disadvantage to that, but there's also a lot of advantage, because at some point or another, any business owner or founder or person working in a startup, you're going to come up against that. And if you don't have the mentality that you can jump in and just work and figure it out, or that there is somebody who's going to give you an answer, you might get into trouble, I think.
That's the other thing we were talking about, is it doesn't matter whether you've got a lot of experience running a business, you're starting a business, you better be prepared to roll your sleeves up and do everything. Quite often businesses fail where people have ideas and they've maybe been mid-market executive of, say, I'm going to choose a name, say Nike or Adidas, and they're like, oh, I've got this great business idea, and they jump out to start the business. And one thing people forget is that all that infrastructure that was around them wasn't for free. I mean, I actually got to pay the electricity bill. Oh, I actually have to clean the toilets. Oh, I actually have to take the garbage out. Well, as a business owner, certainly my experience is you better be able to roll your sleeves up and be chief toilet cleaner and lead by example. And certainly we were talking about that, which is we're problem solvers. Get on and solve the problem and do it all on a daily basis.
Yeah. How big is your team? I never asked you that.
We actually still have a fairly small team, only 15 people, and 4 of those are international. When I say international, it sounds pretty highfalutin. My younger brother runs Showers Pass in the UK. Which, again, if you're going to start international channels, you better have somebody you trust blindly. And the other thing is, it kind of came out on the stage here several times, is you better know why you're doing something. Why did we open up an international subsidiary? Why? Because I happen to be exceedingly close with my younger brother, and opening up a European subsidiary meant I got to speak with my younger brother 2 times a day, most days of the week, on FaceTime. And as we entered into it together, I basically said, and he said, it's like, you know what? If this goes horribly wrong, it really doesn't matter, because we got to speak to each other every day for 2 days. So again, know why you're doing it and set the right goals and expectations.
Yeah, that came out when we were talking before, too, around the why of what you're doing. And there was, I think, a lot of overlap around, the mission and the fun of it, but also like the diverging paths between our companies, in that yours was a lifestyle, you didn't raise money, and for us, going into becoming entrepreneurs, we really didn't understand anything about any of the pathways. And so when we were at this festival, we were always trying to gain information like, okay, well, why do some people do VC money? What is angel money? What's a family office? And how do people bootstrap it? And like, what's the benefit of bootstrapping, and what works for some people and not for others? And so maybe you could talk a little bit to your experience.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy, because I have to say it's kind of fashionable now. If you're an entrepreneur, it's pretty fashionable to start. Oh, what's your first round of fundraising? What's your second round of fundraising? We were pretty fortunate, again, having a few gray hairs. My business partner and I, we basically said, you know what? We're not going to take salary for a few years. I have some life savings that I'm going to put on the line and loan to the business, so the bank sees the money we've loaned as capital in the business, which is great. So we've been able to do it without taking any outside capital. The business could have grown a lot faster if we'd chosen to grow a lot faster, if we borrowed a lot of money, but we've chosen not to, and we just grow organically and slowly, which has been kind of fun. But even though we'd been in business before and seen you learn some pretty serious lessons. I just want to share a kind of a funny one. I've been very fortunate. The first 3-4 employees that joined us over 12 years ago are still with us today. And Stephanie, my head of marketing, she came to me 5 years ago now, actually 6 years ago, and she's kind of pretty upset. She said, Kyle, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, okay, that's fantastic news. She said, no, but what am I going to do? I'm pregnant, and I'm like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it, don't worry. So we outsource our payroll. So I called the payroll company, and I said, oh, yeah, how do I get Stephanie on the maternity program? I'm English, you might notice from the accent. And then well, what do you mean? I said, well, the maternity program for ladies, that she's pregnant, she's going to... They said, there isn't a maternity program. I'm like, what do you mean there's no maternity program? Of course there's a maternity program. And so I went back to Stephanie, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. I am so sorry. This is a cultural mess. So the ladies in the office got together, locked them. I said, lock yourselves in and come up with a program. So we came up with a program. But the point behind this is that even as a mature business, in theory, mature business person, I'd been sheltered in working for large corporations. I had no idea there was no things like maternity programs. Right? So we rolled one out. And again, being English, one of the other silly things we did, which ended up being an advantage for us from day one, we offered full health care to everybody. So when the laws changed and said you had to, we were like, yeah, that's no big deal. Everybody was complaining, bitching, and moaning about it. I'm like, hey, we've been doing it for years. What's the problem? Get on with it. So that's kind of some of the experiences I've had doing this thing. And we were talking about that is you've got to figure out why you're doing it and what it is you're trying to achieve. And as Kelly was saying, ours is definitely more of a lifestyle business.
Yeah, I think early on, Kaylee and I are both really ambitious, and when we first started Slumberkins, when we were still like hand stitching them in our homes and like gearing up to go to a local craft fair down the street, we had somebody say to us like, fill out the question, do your big, hairy, audacious goal of, I'll know I've made it when. And when we did that, even back then, we said, when there's Slumberkins on ice. So we had this huge vision and big North Star for where we wanted to go. Not that we knew exactly how we were going to get there. We didn't know at all how we were going to get there. But I think for us, it meant going down to the fabric store, learning how to sew, making them ourselves, selling, and rolling that money into being able to bootstrap for a time. And luckily, we had some really great community members. Our bank in Vancouver, IQ Credit Union, gave us a line of credit, which is actually pretty hard to get for direct-to-consumer brands. To help us grow, and we bootstrapped for a while while we were figuring out this question, like, how do you decide if you're just gonna slow grow, or if you're gonna, do a lifestyle, or if you're gonna take money? And I think for us, because we had this huge goal and this idea of seeing our characters come to life and, Slumberkins on ice, that meant that we did need to raise money, and we did need to move fast. We were already feeling the momentum behind us of customers pushing us to move fast. The demand was there. It wasn't like we were chasing or grinding for that momentum. It was behind us. The wind was in our sails. And so it's really sparked us to say, okay, the VC or the family office funding is our route. We want some people to help us grow fast and to kind of put our stake in the ground to say, we are the next Mr. Rogers Sesame Street mashup for the modern age, and we have to move fast because it's the time to do that.
Yeah. One of the things the other thing that we were talking about was just how again the changing channels has been so dramatic over this last decade. I mean, you think about it, a decade ago, Amazon didn't really exist. And Amazon now has, you better understand Amazon, how to engage with Amazon, things like just the pick, packing, and shipping piece. And there was one of the lessons that we had as a business pretty quickly. If you go out to the marketplace, I guarantee if you're trying to start up and you say, I think we need to sell through Amazon, there's 1,000 businesses out there that'll say, we'll help you sell through Amazon. And I'm sure most of them are very effective. And what we did as a business, we were, we better do that. So we outsourced some of the Amazon things. And this isn't working. We moved to another outsourcer. That's not working. And finally, we as a business said, hold on, Amazon isn't going away. It's a channel, and marketplaces like Amazon aren't going away. These marketplaces are going to continue to exist. If you're going to be a successful business, you probably need that IQ internally. So we went through a painful exercise of pulling that all back in-house, which was huge for us, and now it's proving to be very, very successful. The other piece that if somebody had asked me 5-10 years ago as we started to build consumer direct business, my answer was as soon as we got to a certain size, we were going to outsource our fulfillment. That's not a core competency of ours. We're going to go to a third-party logistics company and get them to do our pick, packing, and shipping. Pick, packing, and shipping is just shoving it in a box and sending it out the door. Well, guess what? In today's world with consumer direct, it's not. Because if you think about it from a consumer standpoint, the very first physical experience the consumer has of your product is that package sitting on the doorstep. So do you want your consumer to have a nasty white plastic bag experience, or do you want your consumer to have a nice box experience? Oh, and by the way, the nice box better not be too nice, because the consumer looks and says, hey, why did I waste my money on that packaging? So that's what the whole thing with regards to evolving channels. It's not just the channel that's evolving, it's everything that goes around that, the packaging, the commerce, the banking, the funding. Mm-hmm. Traditional bank funding would be, we'll lend you money on your receivables. Well, as a direct-to-consumer only business, you sit down with a bank and they go, what do your receivables look like?
Depends on the campaign. It's like nothing. It's like the day comes in and orders come in and there's no big receivables on them.
So that's a key thing as well, is finding a bank that understands, and a bank that has evolved to understand the new go-to-market channels as well. We're very fortunate as well. We've got a local bank, a local Pacific Northwest bank called Washington Trust. And this is one of I think, the common theme that both of us had. Again, businesses that are in very different stages. The common theme came out was find a financial institution that takes the time to understand your business. Unfortunately, most banks, they'll ask you for a business plan and a financial sheet, and they'll plug your numbers into a spreadsheet. And if you don't fit into their metrics, their plan, then sorry, you're not going to get the kind of funding you need. I think you've had that experience as well.
Yeah, we did, and we are continuing to look for options around a line of credit to increase our line of credit for these exact same reasons. And we're looking. There are more banks and options coming out, specifically out of Silicon Valley and different places where they're more in front of the trends. But yeah, I mean, for us, it was really. The smaller group where we had an advocate in the bank that was really for women in business and, putting her neck out and helping us educate us through the process of how to get that line of credit. And really along the way, when you look at those moments, right, like they're sort of make or break moments now when I look back. Like, had we not got that, I don't know what would have happened. We would have been stalled out, or we might not have been able to order the inventory that we needed that landed the day we aired on Shark Tank. It's all like the timeline moves so quick, and the decisions that you're making day to day, especially in a fast-paced startup, you look back and think, wow, I'm glad that we made that decision then, or there's a lot of impact that can happen if you're not taking care of those types of things.
Yeah, we're both talking about facing the reality on occasions where how are you going to meet payroll, and where is the cash coming from for payroll? So again, having a financial institution that's there to understand, and I think is Umpqua Bank still here? I think there are local guys as well that really take the time to listen to what it is you're doing. And that was really the difference for us. The local bank sat down and said, what exactly it is that you're trying to do? How are you trying to do it? And how can we as a bank feel comfortable about lending you the money to do it? And we were, again, very fortunate with a local bank that did that for us.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, now that we are just closing our seed round, and so now we're in this place of having a lot of cash in the bank and being able to make these decisions that we've been having to wait on, or wanting to hire somebody, or get this resource but saying, oh, it's too expensive, and we couldn't pay that, or that doesn't make sense right now. We have to let's see how this sale goes before we figure out this. And while I think that practice is still going to continue to be part of what we do, it does feel really nice on the side of raising money to have supporters and investors that believe in the vision and the growth and push us to make those risks. That's been something we, coming from education, probably tended on Kaylee and I are pretty risky people in terms of do something and move fast. But when it comes to making big decisions with financial impact, we are, very calculated, conservative in thinking about the strategy of it. But having people who are aligned with that growth to help us to say, yes, this is what that money is for. It is for making that bet and testing and learning and striving for the growth you're talking about. You're talking about Slumberkins on Ice. This is the next step. And, you just kind of go and take a gulp and take the step,
One of the things that came up was the whole notion of being accountable and being on the hook. And often we'll speak to people and they go, oh, yeah, did you manage to get unsecured money? I'm like, what do you mean by unsecured? At the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, you're on the hook.
Personal guarantee.
Personal guarantee. You're basically, and your house and everything else. And at some point, you're saying, are you committed or are you not? And once you're committed, you better jump out there and do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the other founders, and I think that, like, you feel so good around a group of other founders or people who are walking this path, just to know we're all like taking these immense risks, right? Like whether it be time or these financial risks, or just doing something where, even maybe your family is like, you're crazy, like, stop it. I mean, I think my mom sat me down after like a year and was like, you tried something, Kelly, and maybe it's not that good. I don't think you're gonna make it. And I was like, excuse me, you're crazy. Like, it was, staying with your group of people, connecting with other founders, and like keeping with the crazy is kind of great.
Yeah, that's certainly some advice I would give anybody who's trying to get out there is make sure that you do have some friends and connect. And this is why this environment is so great. My closest friends in Portland now, I suddenly realize they're both folks that have started businesses, run business. It's why? It's because we can talk to each other. All the challenges, all the day-to-day risks. It's just like, oh yeah, I get it. I understand. And so having basically that support group of being able to share with each other and go, well, how on earth did you navigate through this? And that's the other thing that I would say as entrepreneurs is as you're getting started, and don't be shy about asking, especially folks that have been around. The one thing I will say, I was talking to some folks earlier about this, ask, get the advice, but don't take that advice as gospel. Yeah. It is just an opinion. So ask as many people as you can and say, that's great advice, that's rubbish advice, that's good advice, that's rubbish advice. And just start segmenting it off and go with the advice is good. I literally kind of explained that our business has evolved dramatically to be now, mainly major accounts, people like REI, thank you REI, we love you, and MEC in Canada, and then consumer direct. But 5 years ago, I stood on a stage at the International Bike event, and I was told, oh no, the way of the future is the independent store there. Those are the guys that are going to get. And I listened to that advice, and if I'd taken that advice, Showers Pass would probably be out of business now. So it seemed very good advice, but it wasn't good advice.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's, gather information, reach out. We try to keep everything really relational, and those have been some of the biggest impacts in our business are people that we've reached out to as mentors or just to ask questions to that have opened up the doors that have helped us grow our business. And
don't be afraid to sometimes make bold decisions. One of the funniest ones we did 2 years ago is we actually fired Dick's Sporting Goods as a customer. And if you're in the sporting goods space, having Dick's as a customer is like, in theory, nirvana. But it was kind of an interesting experience for us. We have these wonderful things called waterproof socks. And we started getting all these warranty calls on our waterproof socks. And we're like, what is going on? And all these socks had holes in them. We're like, what is going on with our waterproof socks? We went back to Dick's, and Dick's was firing a security tag through our waterproof socks. And we're like, you're putting a hole in all our waterproof socks? Yeah, we have to. I'm like, no. You don't have to be putting a hole in our waterproof socks. Oh no, we have to continue to do that because we have to protect our inventory. And so we made the decision to fire Dick's Sporting Goods because clearly it was damaging our brand and everything else. But that's a pretty scary thing to do. So having the courage to sometimes stand up and do what you need to do to protect yourselves.
Yeah, and the other thing, just like, people say to parents all the time, like, you are the expert on your child, and what you will know in your gut what is right. And I think that translates very much to a business for the founders because our businesses are our babies. We're pouring our passion into it, and you know your business better than anyone else, and you will have intuition and gut responses about decisions that you're coming up on when you get there. And when you get to those moments, trust your gut, because it is the path. If you're aligned with what you're doing and your passion, your gut is going to lead you the right way. Even if it feels like a failure one moment, the next moment is the thing that's going to open up.
And that was the one very, very common thing that we both found. Here's two very, very different businesses operating in very, very different markets, starting at very different times. And guess what? On a daily basis, we're facing exactly the same challenges and navigating through the exact same. So I think our message to everybody here is that, it's about problem solving. It's facing those challenges head on and tackling them. And we do it on a kind of daily basis.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Cool.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.